and relax. We're back in the championship, as if by magic. But after all that fuss and all that stress, Al, we're over the line. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Al, we were talking before, obviously with you being there and whatever. I saw some footage of you in the crowd actually, which turned up on various TV platforms or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just a really kind of magical way. The way it all played out in the end, it was almost like pure Cardiff City, really, wasn't it? You know, if you told the story again in a few years' time, people would think you were kind of making up the way that goal went in to make it all happen, as well as us playing really well.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
I only found out today that Jack Bycroft has scored the goal for Exeter. That was his second header on goal. I didn't realise he'd gone up before that as well.
Really?
Yeah. Look, it was. I thought, and we messaged each other beforehand, and I thought that it would happen against Port Vale on Wednesday. I couldn't see Stockport dropping any points down there. Exeter have been pretty woeful. When we played down there, Exeter were woeful, and I just thought, well, Stockport would turn them over. And as the goals were going in, you kind of thought, well, okay, we knew, we knew we were kind of mathematically we were going to get, sort of promoted that day. And then right at the end, I mean, it's never really happened to us before in the same way where you get that buzz in the crowd, and then I kept thinking, it's a false alarm. They haven't really scored like that. And then all of a sudden, it's like almost like a Mexican wave of sound. It just kind of, people just go, and it's going louder and louder and louder. The next minute, everyone's jumping up, and then it's got through to the players on the field, and it was a few minutes where unreal is the best way to describe it. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
And you, of course, all we knew at that stage, basically, we didn't care about anything else. All we knew was that somehow or other Exeter had equalised. But the story of it being, the goalkeeper, who I think he played for Swansea, if I'm right. I think that's right. And he comes up and he storms his header into the back of the net, like a minute to go. It's just absolutely crazy stuff. And it's a legendary moment. And for once, Cardiff City were on the right side of it.
But ironically, the keeper, when we played down at Exeter in September, early in the season in a cup game, he'd had a load of stick off City fans, to the point where the public announcer had to say, "Can you stop giving him stick?" It was that goalkeeper, and now he's a freeman of the city now, isn't he? Really? So it's just all that pure Cardiff City, isn't it? Pure Cardiff City.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that he's never going to have to pay for a pint again in Cardiff, for the rest of his life. Steve, Steve Light's first timer on the show. We were talking earlier without going into it all again, but we know each other through music we worked it out 37 years ago. So, typical blokes, keep the conversation going. Let's catch up again 37 years later. But you were saying, interestingly, with you, of course, you were in the band at the time. I was involved in Red Dragon then, and you came along and got to connect. You came to Cardiff really because of the music thing to a large extent, and then you went to Indian Park and you absolutely got the bug. So, you were as excited as the rest of us on the weekend, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a little story as well, in that my son, Ruben, who is 16 next month, he's got the bug as well, massive City fan. And, but he's revising. It's that time.
Yeah.
And his mum said, no, he can't go at the weekend, and he can't go in the week. And as Al said, I've seen someone has just put a message up there, that kind of almost expected it to be in the week game. Nail biting. Yeah. And told my son, no, you can't go in the week either. And he was like, oh, they're going to run on the pitch. That's when we're going to, that's when we're going to win it. And no, revise. And he was like, oh, gutted. So he's kind of very pleased that we managed to do it on the weekend. So he feels a bit better about not going in the week now. And we had the two games on the TV behind me.
Oh, yeah.
So we had the game on the top and our game underneath. And of course, we saw that keeper nut the ball in, and there was limbs here in my front room, me and my son.
Brilliant.
So Yeah, so it's like I think it's justice for him that he can revise now on in the week, and I'll go to the game, and but we're already there.
Yeah. So and Aled with the Wednesday's game, the Port Vale game. I don't mean it really, really seriously, but I was kind of half selfishly thinking, oh, fair enough, let's do it on Wednesday and let's all be there and have that moment where, where you have that breakthrough of joy when you normally it is home, and then the stewards try and keep you off the pitch, and then if you get on, the next thing you know, everyone's on like partying on down or whatever. But we'll have to have like a pre-arranged emotional moment now, won't we? What time are we going to do the pitch invasion sort of thing? What was your take on it, Alex? Are you obviously delighted, and City done brilliantly to achieve this. It's as a lifelong City fan, and for all of us, it's surprising to me that it's a good news story and it's gone relatively well.
Yeah, obviously delighted to have done it in the first season and with a few games to go. Like those moments are lovely when it comes down to the last day and you get it over the line, and it's amazing. But I think we all feel a little bit more comfortable now that there's 3 or 4 games to go and we've got it in the bag and can relax a little bit. It's not, it's not easy to do as well. A lot of big clubs who have come down from the Championship have fallen foul to League One.
Absolutely
to get out of. And considering, I've sort of, since we did it on Saturday, I've sort of been watching stuff around, and the not to promote another podcast, but the Not the Top 20 podcast did a really good kind of deep dive on it, where they looked at our position at the start of the season when we didn't really make any signings. A lot of big players left.
And you should say that, Ala, just to say, I'm putting a message up on the screen now, but it goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly that. Didn't really sign a player. Brought in a manager who, I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up, I didn't like the appointment when it was made.
Too Irish for you? Was he too Irish for you?
No, it was just because it was. I wanted somebody who was probably more proven with a promotion record, but. Yeah, I have to hold my hands up and say I absolutely got that wrong, and the club have absolutely nailed it, because BBM he's been the man who's developed players like Cole Palmer at Man City and Oscar Bob and stuff, and he's been exactly what we needed for the squad that we had. And I think that's the most pleasing aspect, really, that we've not fallen foul to that trap of League One, and we've done it. We've now got an identity, I think, going into next season, and something to really, really look forward to.
Yeah, and on that point, Al, as well, before I go back to Al, is, it was, and in fact, I probably can't carry this with Al, even think about responding to this as well. It's so massively off the scale important, I think, that we avoided the playoffs. We went straight back up. We've done it. We're there. Hopefully it was a one-season tour, and now we can get back to championship and above. But it's in terms of the stature of the club and everything about Cardiff City, is absolutely massive, isn't it? That we've done it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And some will say, okay, we should have won the league and blah 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 blah. But Lincoln have just had one of those seasons where everything they've touched has turned to gold, and there's not much we could have done. Their form has been ridiculous, really, and with such a young team that we've got, we knew going into the season there was going to be times where we're not 100% with such a young team. They're going to make mistakes, they're going to learn, and you have to deal with that. But for the large part, they've been absolutely outstanding. The manager's been outstanding. He's got most things right, and as you said, to have that season where we avoid the playoffs and you avoid the kind of nervousness around that.
We really didn't want that.
Yeah, especially with such a young team who probably not really been in that.
The pressure would have been on us hugely, absolutely massively.
And some good teams in there like Bolton and Stockport as well, who've been in the playoffs before, who are desperate for that promotion.
And do you want to respond to that, Al, about how important it was that we did this?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us at the beginning. Anyone who says that they thought it was a good appointment at the beginning, I'm not sure if I'd go with that. We were all up in arms. I think we'd seen prior to us, Birmingham and Wrexham had collectively spent tens of millions of pounds to get out of this division. Now, let's not forget that. You know, Birmingham City spent over 30 million. They spent 10 million on a striker just to get out the division. And then if we look at that, and we were standing back going, we haven't bought anyone. We're just letting players go. You know, I can remember, you know, we were all saying, oh, I hope the club gets taken over. We hope it's sold, we hope Tangos and so on. And no one could have predicted this. I mean, it is down to one man. I've got no doubt at all about it. The humility that he's shown right away throughout the season. Okay, he's always in his press conferences. He's always respected the opposition. He's always said how good the opposition is going to be. He's never let any of the players get carried away. Around it's down to him. I think now pushing on, moving forward. I mentioned Birmingham City earlier. They're basically a way of showing us how not to do things when we go up. They sort of ripped the cards up. Let's get more players in. Changing managers. It's going to be, this next season is going to be very, very, very difficult. Looking ahead, Bagan out of contract, Wintle out of contract, Perry NG out of contract. You know, 3 players who really, well, in particular, I would say Wintle and Bagan were amongst our best players this year. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done. But I think all of us now are sitting back saying, well, we've got the right man in place to do what needs to be done. You know, in BBM we trust, and we certainly do. And I couldn't think of a better, having, you know, we've only got the experience of 1 year, but I couldn't have thought of a better bloke to be there to now kick on. I believe the club are in the ascendancy, and we're in a really, really good position. Let's build on this with the youngsters. I mean, how proud are we that we saw 9 academy players getting photographed on the pitch at the end of the game?
Yeah.
Normally, you know, we'll get a Joe Ledley or a Ramsey, you know, we say, oh, he's one of our own. Now it's just like, oh, the 9 of our own, you know, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah. And they all come from our communities, and I think that's why we all.
Apart from Joel, of course. Of course, but he was in that picture because he's been part of that same thing.
Yeah, but you know, you know, got the Colwell boys from Neath and so on. So you've got everyone from different parts of South Wales who support the city can identify with those kids, and I just think it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah,
it's a great picture.
Get carried away there, Steve. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, well, actually, I want to just. I've got to go to something else, and it does change the nature of what we're talking about to some extent. Firstly, when I was watching the game on the weekend, reminded me the feelings going back to 2003 in that, let's face it, terrible game but great result against QPR when we went up to the Championship. And I mentioned it so many times. I mention it again because it is so important for lots of people. You know, they don't know any about this. You know, if you've come along Cardiff City over the last 20 years, you always used to success. You know, getting into the Championship was huge. It was absolutely massive for us. And that Andy Campbell, it was his birthday yesterday, I think, as well, actually, you know, for that. And I remember the emotion of that day. And I was standing with a guy called Alan Williams, who was the guy who ran Havering Roofing. And for that day, he generated some free tickets for us to go in a box, you know, to watch the match. And so, you know, the Strongbow was flowing and all the rest of it. And we scored that goal, and I stood next to him, Al, right, behind the goal for those last few minutes. And I suddenly realized he was crying his eyes out, you know. He was in bits, you know. So I just, you know, put my arm around him, gave him a hug, and, you know, consoled him. And it was those kind of memories came back to me a little bit, the emotion of it. You know, I was sitting there with a smile on my face and a tear in my eye, literally, you know. It's a weird thing, but and the reason that I've led in with that is that you know, the tragic news coming through, of course, is you know, probably the fan that everyone would know has had anything to do with Cardiff City. You know, not always for very good reasons. Maybe he was so noisy, why don't you go and sit somewhere else? But you know, it's an absolute, total, utter 1000% football character, Die Hunt, who amazingly passed away on the day that it happened. I know you used to sit near him in the ground, I think. Do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I when they put the seats in all those years ago on the Bob Bank, I was three rows behind him, directly behind him. Okay, and he was. You know, we never wanted to move. I mean, I started taking my son down when he was 4, I think, and he grew up knowing that Die Hunt was the guy who sat in front of us. But it was part of the Saturday. You know, it was everyone's got their own everyone's got their own stories, and at the moment, I know some of the boys online were saying he was screaming, get it out wide to Chris Pike and all this sort of nonsense. And for me, he used to shout Neil to Neil Alexander every single game, right? Neil Alexander's there, Neil, and until Neil Alexander waved back at him, he wouldn't shut up. Okay, well, we all remember it with his musical instrument when the Bob Bank was terracing. And everyone's got their own memories. I mean, my favourite memory, kind of City related, was half-time, the England-Wales game in the Euros 2016. If you remember, Wales were 1-0 up. And we were all excited. And I could hear this voice behind me, and I was like, bloody hell, he sounds familiar. And I turned around, and it was Dai Hunt in a Wales sort of flag top. And his big blue and white huge scarf he had a red and white Wales one. Right.
Oh yeah.
So there I was. It was absolutely incredible. It was just like wow. But yeah, look, we used to see him. You used to hear him every week, didn't you?
You'd hear him, you'd hear him.
And everyone, to be fair, Steve, people said, "Oh, what a nuisance" previously, but there's been a massive outpouring of love for him online. I know Mikey Thorne does the flags. He's put flags out today down on the statue.
Yeah, I saw that. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's really, really, really good. Someone had commented, and it's my favourite one over the weekend, and they've said I think the comment is for some people football's nothing, but for some people football is everything, and that was Dai Hunt, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. You've heard about Dai Hunt, I guess, have you?
Yeah.
You've heard of his?
Yeah, I was with some friends who knew him when our phone started buzzing. It was like, "Have you heard? Is this true?" Just across my local pub, and he was one season he appeared in the Canton stand. I heard then he got asked to move somewhere else or something, and you could it'd be a running commentary, wouldn't it? But sometimes I think just I'm a bit of a Cardiff City obsessive and bleeding blue and everything, but that's nothing compared to Dai. Goodness me, I mean, it was it's like it was his life. It was just incredible. And his sketches that he used to do. And he'd get to know players on first name terms, and he'd be waiting outside for them, and handing them the sketches.
Every match,
every single match, and it's just devotion, it's passion, next level, and it's just incredible. And I'm quite vocal, I'm quite passionate. I like to, I'm too old to know better to get involved in all the limbs, but I end up doing it, and my God, I almost fell off the top tier in Bradford earlier in the season. But it's yes, he was vocal, but it's the 12th. We're the 12th man. Sometimes this season we've gone a bit quiet. When we needed to wrap up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the nerve that was,
and that's why I always
the nervous afternoons at the stadium.
But CCS will be a lot quieter without him, and a lot less colourful. That's for sure.
And the thing with that, Alad, is I don't know whether you ever came across Dai. I'm sure you've heard about him. This might be me just remembering things wrong, but I seem to remember. It might be totally wrong. Please tell me I'm totally wrong. Any other comments about Dai? Please fire him in, please. Didn't he call his dog Cardiff City or something? Am I right in thinking that?
I haven't heard that, but
I think he might have done, or he told me that he did it.
Yeah, it would not surprise me whatsoever. Yeah. As the boys have said, like he is the without. I'm not trying to make a pun here, but he is the embodiment of a die-hard fan, isn't he?
Yeah.
He absolutely bled blue and white Cardiff City, and I was doing some filming at the stadium last summer for one of the charity games. And obviously, it's, players coming back to play in it. Lee Peltier, David Marsh, Ben Turner, etc.
Dai was there, no doubt.
Oh, he was there, yeah, of course. And we were outside getting some shots for the player's arrival, and he's doing his thing. And as soon as Peltier comes out of the car, Lee, blah, blah, blah. And then I was sat in the the sort of press bit where the journalists sit in the grandstand and doing on my laptop, whatever. And because it was a charity game, they only put people in that stand. There was every other stand was closed off. And he was right behind. And within 15 seconds of the game kicking off, he said, "Get it forward, man." And within 15 seconds of the game kicking off.
That kind of crowd, you'd notice him even more, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Sorry, my dog. Yeah. But, as he said, embodiment of a die-hard fan.
Yeah.
And he did that team talk as well, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
And just wow, yeah.
I love him or hate him. I know he rubbed people up the wrong way at times, but I hope
it could be irritating. You could be irritating and very loud.
Yeah, and I hope tomorrow night there's a big fitting tribute.
Yeah, 67th minute we're talking about for the website.
I think we're lucky in the way that Paul Corky is there as a fans liaison officer, and some of the boys have already been in touch with him, and so he's kind of the conduit between fans and the club, if you like. So I think he'll be able to. Corky has said the club will be doing something. So and that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
I saw that,
and I can't believe they won't now.
Yeah. No. I saw that Kevin McNaughton put up a picture of him and
did he?
And I mean, you don't get that from many former players, where you're that close to an individual fan. He's one of a kind in that way.
Absolutely. And on that point, just to talk to Al a bit about that, not being kind of, I don't know, fanciful about it, but if you think as you move up the leagues, we've just moved up the league. We're all delighted. We're going to the Championship and whatever. But I'm not saying I don't want to go in the Premiership, because I kind of do, obviously, because otherwise, that's the future. That's how the club makes money and all the rest of it. But those seasons in the Premiership for me were probably the least enjoyable, seasons actually. And the thing about somebody like Guy, and League One's a good example of that. I think the camaraderie and the kind of the camaraderie, people just loving football together. I'm not sure you see that further up the leagues.
Spin that on his head. Yeah, I mean, spin that on his head. I think the Premier League was some of our worst days. And if someone said to you, when's your favourite season in the last 20 years, most of us may well say this season.
It'd be one of them,
grounds to go to.
Be one of them. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, in the cold light of day, we're going to some of the grounds that we're now returning to next year, which we've been to, so many times. It doesn't hold that much excitement. But going there, I suppose, with homegrown players could be something completely different. I hope we do it differently this year. Because it's a circus now, isn't it? And the TV, we don't know when we're going to be playing from we only know from 1 month to the next. It's going to be really, really difficult. It tests your patience, doesn't it? You've gone to Middlesbrough for a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday or whatever,
Yeah.
Oh God, we had so many of those, though, didn't we? The 12:30 kickoffs, and I guess because we are considered to be one of the big boys in League One. And it's interesting, Steve mentioning that Andy Campbell goal in the playoff final. I mean, 4 years later, then we were walking out at a cup final, and I'd never thought I'd see that. And that was definitely the catalyst for, just touching what Al was saying, my happiest time as a City fan was actually in the Championship, playing really good football. Eventually, with that sort of Dave Jones era, Dave Jones used to frustrate me. Don't get me wrong. And all the fun we had with Sam Imam and all that, but it was there were players on that journey that I super identified with, almost Die Hunt style, tribute to Die. I was obsessed with Witts and Chopra and Bothroyd and even
big
like
characters, weren't they? Big characters
and Burke and players like that. And obviously, again, I'm glad that was brought up. This amazing feeling of our homegrowns this season.
Yeah,
I was a little worried. Losing like O'Dowda, Gutas and Ralls and Ramsey, and we were late to the party, weren't we? League One sides were signing players, and we didn't even have a manager in place.
We were the last team in the EFL to sign a player.
Yeah. Why always
that was our show, was
why
it?
Why do we never learn from this? And then when I saw that, when we went ready for the big kickoff, all we had in was Trott and Kellerman. I thought I'm not so sure about this. And whether it was by plan, like by design, or by accident, we have gone up with a team that's so loaded with homegrown and academy talent, and what a buzz that is. And it's almost like, and Al mentioned the amount of money Birmingham and Wrexham threw at.
Wrexham spent a fair bit too,
We haven't done that. We've gone down this road of homegrown talent. And I still don't know if this was Vincent Tan by design or Vincent Tan by good fortune. But we're there. And we are there seeing like Dylan Lawler, he's my favourite player, and even Ruben Colwell putting the armband on, and Capaccio coming through. And don't get me wrong, losing at home to Burton Albion, I was walking home thinking, how did it come to this? From the Premier League, as Steve was saying, to this, how did this happen?
I think Burton, the only team who did a double over us in the end. Is that right so far? Yeah. Crazy.
But I suppose if you're a Spurs fan or a Leicester fan, you're probably saying the same thing.
Well,
how did it come to this, right? So we're not, and you could reel off all those teams that have been there, your Evertons and even Glasgow Rangers, and obviously Man United fans always protested about their owners, and Sheffield Wednesday, poor old Sheffield Wednesday, So but
that could have happened to us. That could have happened to us. That kind of stuff could have happened to us.
Yeah. So,
I
think when we came, I don't again by more default than design. When we came down, Leicester coming down, I think this year, they've got no relegation clauses in any of their players' contracts.
Oh, right.
So their players are coming down, and those still in contract are going to still going to be commanding Premier League wages, and they've signed them all. It's an incredible situation. So Sheffield Wednesday coming down in a bad position, I get that. I think Leicester might well be in a worse position financially because I don't know how they're going to carry on trading. We came down, like I said, I don't know if this was by design, but we got rid of the people who were basically we were paying good money to, and now the youngsters we've signed, apart from the three that I've mentioned, we signed them up on long deals now. So if anyone comes in, we're going to get fees for them. So I mean that's. Yeah. I've never once been on here saying about good business sense in the last 10 years about Cardiff City, but I
haven't noticed you do before.
I'll eat some humble pie, Steve, and I'll say someone's had a good idea, and they've signed them up.
While it's going well. I mean, the Chris Hughes-Jones makes a point about that because they are the three, really. I don't know. I don't have any news on it. I mean, I've saying it every week. Joel Bagan. He's young, he's the right demographic. Give him a 3-year contract, sign him up. Wintle, probably a key candidate player of the season. He's having shots for fun now as well. He puts great shots in. And NG, what a goal he scored on the weekend, and he's really come good. And of course, of those three, they've all got championship experience, particularly NG and Wintle. So you'd think they'd be looking to get them over the line. Do you think maybe there's something going on behind the scenes there, Aled? Maybe sort of, agents and whatever, because if they're going to be out of contract, there might be other clubs, I don't know. Is that the way it would work?
Depends where the club or where the manager sees them going, I suppose. Those three, obviously, Bagan and Wintle in particular, and all three of them have been really, really good for us this season. And Bagan and Wintle in particular are.
Bagan's played more than anyone else, I think.
Yeah, no, I think they're right up there for candidates for player of the season. But if you do look at that, I suppose what's NG 30, 31 now, maybe a bit older. Wintle similar.
I'm not sure. 29, 30 is he?
29, 30. Bagan, he's the youngest of the bunch, I think, isn't he? Still, he's not, necessarily a really young.
Is he 23, 24? I think he is. Maybe?
Yeah. So I look at that, and there might be options for them to go elsewhere, but I don't think where those guys in particular are going to get to. I don't think there would be many options better than us at the minute. Maybe you might be able to get a few more quid somewhere else at a similar sized club, potentially. But I think for them three, it would be in their interest to sign a new contract, if obviously they're offered one.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they're, it's not like the likes of Ruben or Lawler, who we see with bags of potential that could go to I don't think they're going to be signed by a Premier League club. All those three players, I think they're going to be in the Championship, realistically. And, within the role that they've played this season, as long as they're still in the plans of the manager and they're still in his plans for next season, I don't really see a benefit to them going elsewhere. Obviously, the finances have got to be right for them, but if they can get the deal, then I don't see them better off anywhere else.
Obviously, Al, when you're on a contract, as a footballer, that's your chance to negotiate. You're going up a level. You've had a good season. It gives you a little bit of bargaining power, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, Joe Bagan's the only City player who was named in the EFL.
Absolutely, the only one.
He was the only one named, only last night. He's only 20. He's only 24. I'm surprised. You just don't know, right? But they've managed to pin everyone else down to long contracts, and the cynic in me is thinking, has his agent said don't sign anything yet? I don't know because how they've got everyone else signed up and not him. I really don't know. It's been great for Wintle. Again, we were talking about this on Saturday. We farmed him off to Blackpool for a while. We farmed him off to Millwall for a while. He was treated shoddily by the club, and he's shown great character coming back. He's been my player of the season, but I think Wintle. Perry NG, we thought when Capaccio came in, we all thought, oh, that's NG's days. Now he's had it, but he's risen to the challenge, isn't he, of having someone basically fighting for the shirt. He's been great second half of the season. Yeah. There's three players that normally you'd say I wouldn't mind if any of them went, but it's the exact opposite for me. I'd want to keep all three. I think they're brilliant.
I suppose the two which were more likely to maybe might be more likely to move on. That's a lovely idea, by the way. I thought that the thing about Die Hunt, the City players having Hunt on the back of their shirt, so that was a great idea. I suppose, Steve, people like Callum Chambers and Callum Robinson, two of the high earners. I don't know. I wonder about their future when we go back up. Those kind of players maybe might be the ones, because if they're reputedly on quite good money and they could maybe move them on, then maybe you could get 2 or 3 players in their place, sort of thing.
And those 2 players you mentioned were in the team that finished bottom of the league last season.
Yeah.
And they were given many opportunities. They had loads of minutes on the grass, and you would be looking to players like that to drag us out of that mire. And it just didn't happen, and we just got relegated with a whimper, And
although Callum Chambers, to be fair to him, on occasion this season, not all the time, but on occasion, some of the bigger games actually, he looked the captain. Every inch of his body, he played the captain's role. He has his moments this season where he's really really turned it on. I think
it's funny. It's like I liked him in midfield.
Yeah.
In that sort of CDM role, as a little sort of just sat in front of the 2 central defenders.
Yeah.
And coming back to this season, I think Brian chopped and changed his centre halves a lot, didn't he?
A lot, yeah.
And I guess maybe my hunch for that is that he was just keeping them all happy because they're all good centre halves. And, you stick to my favourite 2 is Lawler and Fish.
Yeah. And then Fish got dropped on the weekend, which surprised me too.
Yeah. I think he was just trying to keep them all happy because they're all good centre halves. Osho there's a player in there. There's also a mistake in there.
There is always a mistake in there. He did it again on the weekend. I like him. I think he's a talented player, but there is always a mistake in him.
Definitely a player in there. So that sort of that area was rotated more than any other area on the pitch.
Yeah, which is weird. It's unusual, I think.
I just think it's because we had 4 quality options there, and he just wanted to maybe. What we've seen is just a good dressing room, a good training pitch. Everyone's getting minutes. Everyone's getting a chance. Maybe that's what that was all about. It used to frustrate me at times, I won't lie. I've got two different centre halves again. I think we all want to see continuity in football, but I guess it's just testimony to just how important the squad game is with injury suspensions and obviously just all the cup games as well. And
where again we talked about it last week. We looked at our best against some teams on a higher level actually, which is encouraging. Just very briefly, Steve, Callum Robinson. It was noticeable that there was a connection, between him and BBM after the match. It was very, very focal. Do you see him play much of a role going forward? Do you have, what's your gut feeling briefly on Callum Robinson?
I think again you mentioned like the wages. I mean, if you look at the last few transfer windows in the summer, let's be honest, it's summer where all the activity really takes place and where you make a statement.
It's a big summer for us.
Yeah, and the January window it's got a bit tepid in recent years, and I think if you look at what I mean, are we looking for championship stability and a steady balance, or are we looking at ambition and making a playoff charge?
That's a big question.
And that's down to Vincent Tan. And I could go into my feelings on Vincent Tan from the day he arrived, but that's another story. And everyone. There's almost 2 camps for that, and such as this style of ownership. But going back to the original question, there has been a theme in recent summer transfer windows that it's been freebies and loans.
Yeah.
Maybe Alex Robertson, I think we paid a fee for.
Yeah.
So that's it.
We don't.
We're in the championship now. Are we going to make a playoff charge and show some ambition, which means is Vincent Tan going to pay transfer fees for players?
Okay.
But go back to Callum Robinson. Yes, he is one of the higher earners.
Yeah.
And
I like his personality. I like he's a big personality. He's a big,
I like him.
Whether that's enough, but again, I don't know. Yeah.
I always felt he was better in the channels rather than
that's an out-and-out striker. Yeah.
I saw him as it's almost
like that way, though, do we really?
No. So for that reason, I can see him going because when Salek got injured, I first thought, well, I don't think Robinson's going to get the nod to replace him.
And he didn't.
Something else because I don't think Robinson's that type of player, and BBN saw that. So
he hasn't got the stature or the physicality, is he?
Yeah, so I can see him moving on, but he's a hell of a character, and when he's playing in the channels, preferably off someone. I suppose we're even talking about the old style 4-4-2 there, which doesn't.
Well, we did that with a little bit of Huddersfield, and all of a sudden, we look great. In my opinion, but there you go.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about his future.
Okay, we got about 20 minutes. There's quite a few. There's a lot of people watching and lots of comments coming in. So let me put this one to you, Aled. From Steve Thomas. Who it's been a big season for Steve as well. By the way. Not the season he had in mind, Steve. For your because of your health issues, and to you, I hope you have a really full recovery over the summer, come back, fully match fit for the championship. But Steve says we haven't won the league at this level since 1947. We were running up to Hereford in 76, Portsmouth in 83, 2 seasons ago. Plymouth finished ahead of Ipswich. He says, I think we'll do well next season. So, so suppose 2 kind of questions there for you, Aled. Do we care that we haven't won the league? Is one. Because I don't really, to be honest. And secondly, do you have a gut feeling about taking this kind of successful team spirit and vitality and youth, forward to the championship? Maybe we could do likewise to Wrexham and push towards the top end.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, Lincoln have just had one of those seasons where their form has just been really unmatchable, and they'll probably never have a season like it again, or not for a very, very long time. So, as when the rate and when they kind of overtook took us. I was a little bit annoyed, but then having seen them just, I think 23 games unbeaten and they've won 18 of them. They haven't lost since November, and they've led for 50% of the time played in games this season. Apparently, it's just crazy. It's just
that's why we get journalists on the show, for that kind of comment.
That's not my stats. I just listened to them earlier, but just absolutely crazy. So I'm not bothered about it now. I think it's a one-off season for them. Congratulations to them. They've been amazing. We've secured second. We're going up. And I kind of said it to my mate who's a Reading fan I was speaking to on Saturday. I kind of see it potentially as 2 years ago when Plymouth won the league and Ipswich finished second, where Plymouth, similarly to Lincoln, had a really, really good season.
Yeah.
So did Ipswich. But then, as we saw the season after, Ipswich got promoted straight back up again and were clearly the better team, clearly the better footballing team. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we will go and do an Ipswich and get automatically promoted again. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think something similar to that will happen. And I think we are the better footballing team out of the two.
Oh, yeah, definitely. For sure.
Think, when next season comes around, I hope Lincoln stay in the Championship. I hope they can establish themselves. But I think we'll find it a bit easier having, obviously played at that level a lot more in recent years. And hopefully if we can keep hold of the manager and keep hold of the key players that we have, we can really progress more than we've got a higher ceiling than them is my overarching point, I think.
We literally have, haven't we? Got a much bigger ground.
Yeah. Right. You're right.
Al, there's something I put to you about this from the fabulously named Halftime Oranges, CCFC. Do you think attendances will improve further now we're back in the Championship? How do you see those attendances picking on, Spurs or West Ham, for example, Wolves, etc.?
Yeah. Yes, to begin with, I think the club, I mentioned it at the beginning, is in the ascendancy. It's got a feel-good factor. Everyone wants to go away, for example. We're selling out all the time away. At home, everyone wants to get tickets. But, we've always said, if performances sort of tail off, people find other things to do on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday or Friday or whenever it's going to be. It's going to be very difficult. If we get off to a good start, then yes, attendances will. I've got a bugbear, and people have had a go at me about this when I said it on the weekend. I think it's a bit tin pot of us to say, oh, great, we're playing Tottenham. In my head, we should be playing teams like Tottenham. So I don't like saying, ole, we're playing Tottenham away. That's not for me. We're a big club. And it just grates me a little bit. Perhaps it's been very arrogant. If I see a team like Lincoln singing, yeah, we're going to Tottenham, great, because I always think Lincoln are a little team. But to me, that's, we belong playing these teams. So sorry if that's insulted half of the listeners.
No.
I just don't get.
I get that. I mean, obviously the thing is as well with Lincoln, I think the home capacity is like 9,000 or 10,000 something. So, but then you see teams like Bournemouth, and so it can work. But the follow-up question for you, I'll start with you, Al, and I'll go around quickly on this one. Then we could about 15 minutes. Just a quick one on this, and then we move on to other stuff. So going back to what you just said, Al, who do you want, West Ham or Spurs?
Definitely Spurs. Only because in my lifetime we played West Ham plenty of times, it seems to me. Spurs would be great, wouldn't it? I think everyone would be ticking that one off as another away one. So definitely Spurs. So I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world because I've just said I don't care, but obviously I do.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into great detail, but a thought just went through my head then about the way you got to be careful about what you say these days, and potential banter could occur when we play Spurs, but we'll leave that to one side. Steve, West Ham or Spurs?
Spurs as well. We've done West Ham in the Championship a few times, and in fact, Kenny Miller, 89th minute at the bowling ground. Talk about limbs again. The limbs are outrageous behind the goal there, and I think that was the trip that we had a banner saying we're forever being bubbled. I
like it.
I think that was the trip. I have to look at the photos. It was, yeah. And that was first glimpse of that was Malky, and Rudy Gested came on as a sub and took the ball down the wing, and it just like, and we behind the goal was like, come on. No, it's not, is it? And boom, in the corner, he swiveled and shot. So Spurs for me, because I've experienced that with West Ham.
Okay.
Let's do that to Spurs as well.
Let's just quickly get a response from Alad on that one then.
Yeah, Spurs as well. Same reasons as the boys. We played West Ham quite a bit in the Championship. We've seen West Ham in the Championship. Also now, not at the Bowling Ground anymore. I didn't go to that, unfortunately, but I have been to the Olympic Stadium, and it's not a great ground to go to. The away day was good because we were right near the West Ham fans, and there was a very drunk West Ham fan who was copping it from our fans a lot, which was funny, but it's not a great ground to go to. So definitely Spurs.
Okay, and then this is a good comment from Jonathan Mordecai. I didn't see this, but the BBC apparently brought out a story today talking to people behind the scenes, whoever they might be at Cardiff, and funds would apparently be made available for BBM if you can justify the players and the prices. So there are apparently funds. I kind of believe that when I see it, but the thing is, Aled, when we went down, the trick of giving the youngsters a run, let them develop for a season, and it's worked. I don't think you can necessarily play that same trick again when you go up the other way.
No, maybe not. But I think it'll be interesting, just going back to, I think, Steve's point earlier, where what approach will we take? Will we throw some money behind it and try and push for the playoffs, or just try and stay up? Am I right in thinking that, is it this summer, the Championship potentially might be expanding the playoffs to 8?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether that decision will perhaps change the strategy going forward, where if it's an 8-team playoff, the board might fancy their chances at an 8-team playoff rather than a 16 playoff. And I personally think that the Championship clubs will vote for that, and we will see that next year. I don't want it to be. I like the 6-team.
Same here.
I think it's, that you get into the top 6, then you earn the right to fight for a Premier League place. But I think that our strategy could depend on that decision potentially, and I think a lot of other teams will, who are kind of in that bracket. The likes of Bristol City, Swansea potentially as well, QPR. I'm trying to think of mid Preston, mid-table kind of.
Did you say Swansea? Did you?
I did say Swansea, yeah.
Do they visit the top half of the table? I'm not sure.
No, 15th at the minute, and they can stay down there as well. But I'm sure they'll
do a day trip.
I'm sure Snoop Dogg will throw a few dollars at it if they're.
Well, the Snoop Dogg banter when they come in.
Get a few more towels down there, and they'll be right. But
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to that already.
I think.
Can I just on the topic of Swansea, and I think it's, we like to be sort of all inclusive in everything we say. So I'm going to talk about the women's team.
Yeah, what a great result! What a fantastic result.
They deserve a mention. So they played against Swansea on the weekend in the Welsh Cup. They were looking to win it for the 5th consecutive season. Swansea were 3-0 up at half time. One of their goal scorers unwisely decided to do the swim away. That's obviously riled the City team. We got back to 3-3 and then won 5-4 on penalties. I'm going to declare an interest here because the Meg Bowen, who scored the winning penalty, was from Llanrwardre and started with our local club there. So there we go. That's a big shout out to Meg. I just used my press. It's fantastic, isn't it? There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, Meg's been amazing. She's been a stalwart of that team for ages, and I think she said in her interview in the one against Wrexham earlier on, she didn't want to take a penalty, and she felt she kind of chickened out of it and really wanted to do it yesterday. So massive shout out to her and the women's team.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and lovely to do it. Lovely to do it that way down from 3-0 down as well. And there was quite a kind of lively exchange, I think. Here it is. I've just found it now. BBM hinted. Right, I've got to get a reaction from Al to this. BBM hinted that Vincent Tan might be at the CCS this week. Thoughts on his reception from the crowd? Will he have a red shirt tucked into his trousers? Is the thought.
Oh, God.
He'll have Die Hand scarf on.
Do you reckon Al, you'd be there when you shake his hand, wouldn't you?
I didn't like it last night, when we went up against Charlton in the red, and he was paraded like the saviour. He's not the saviour, is he? Come on. I mean, but yeah, I think he will be there for Northampton on Saturday. I think he'll fly in and take all the plaudits that he so richly deserves. Sorry.
Yeah. Steve, any thoughts on Vincent Tan? You a fan?
Well, all the plaudits should be for BBM because he is quite a talent, I think. Even though I like Aled, I got it wrong. I wasn't so sure about this appointment, but he's just done a really good job. There's been a couple of blips along the way, but that's a season-long football for you. Yeah, and absolutely. So you see Ken Chu on the pitch and think and on Saturday and all this stuff. It's BBM. He's the man that deserves all the plaudits. And there aren't many football fans who love their owner, who like their owner, as we reeled off a load of teams earlier who continue to protest with owners, So we're no different, but we're the only team that have had their identity meddled with, and I can never forgive and forget for that, but we got to move on. And I'm only interested in the now and the next because I have been the worst for dwelling on shoulda, coulda, shoulda with all that period of our life as a Cardiff fan. It's about the now and next. I'd be happy with like a mid-table finish next season if I'm honest. I want to get that stability back in the Championship. As long as we finish above the Jacks and Wrexham,
And Bristol.
So if we're gonna do that, maybe we are gonna have to push for a playoff place. But I just want some sensible stability next season, and anything else would be a bonus. We should never have been in League One. We should never have finished bottom of the league last season. We had good enough players in that side last season. The last two managers, the predecessors to BBM, I just had a bad vibe about from the first kick of the ball I saw under their stewardship, and it never changed. That was different than the BBM. I just sensed a bit of a sea change. There was more fluidity. And a bit more flexibility, and obviously, a lot of rotation. But we've got promotion, and I wasn't even sure whether I thought it was playoffs this season at the start of the season, at best. And as Steve said right at the start of the show, we've been spared that drama, and we don't have to white knuckle that now. We've got games to spare, and we know we're win the Championship next season. So amazing job, BBM.
The message there for Al brought a smile to his face.
I think it's fantastic. We spent one. I got Jack friends on my down here. We spent 1 million on our show. Look where we got. The Jack spent 30 million quid to get where they are. So all is not good at the Liberty or whatever they call their stadium now. I can't wait till next year. I can't wait. They used to call us hoofball and this, that, and the other. They will not recognise the Cardiff City that when we go and play them down there. They'll have the shock of their lives. I absolutely cannot wait.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'm glad you were able to respond to that. And I'm not surprised by your response either. But here's one for you, right? Which will always run. I'll start with Aled, and I'm going to go Stephen back to Al. So this is a big question. Retrospectively, right? Did we need relegation? Do you know what I mean? Has it been good for us?
Yeah, I think if I'm being completely honest, yes, I think it has been the chance to hit the reset button that we did need. Not that I still don't think we should have gone down last season with the squad that we had. I still think we were very much good enough to have competed in the Championship last season, but I think it is what it is, and having had it happen, it was the chance to push the reset button that we absolutely needed. And I think we've done it in exactly the right way. I think we've, going back to the question earlier about whether it was sort of pre-planned about the academy players or whether it was just, Vincent Tan's pockets had run dry. I think it was a bit of both, really. I think he wasn't going to put any more into the transfers and everything. So it was kind of work with what you got. But I think what we did have was a real strong bed of academy players that were ready to take that chance. And credit where credit's due to the club. They've developed those players. They've brought them through the system. And the board have appointed the best manager who could work with that squad. And credit has to go to the board. And if Tan's played a part in that, credit has to go to him for that decision. They've got it absolutely spot on, and that's the most pleasing thing, I think, for me, is when we did get relegated last season, I did think to myself, right, this is a chance to push the reset button and to bring some of these youngsters through, like Ruben, like Joel, like Joel Bagan, I didn't even know Dylan Lawler at that point. I didn't even know about him.
Just breakthrough season, wasn't it?
Yeah, those players, it was exactly the right time to give them an opportunity in this team. And they've done that, and credit has to go to the board and everything for that. And let's hope now that next year we can kick on with those players. Okay, and Steve, we just got a few minutes, so we've got a response from that. But in the meantime, while we do that, I'm just going to show a great comment from Jonathan Mordecai. Has it been good for us, Steve, to go down and then come back? Take a step back, take a step forward, sort of thing.
I'm a bit mixed about that because there's been a few times this season where it's a bit flat. We're not playing well. It's not happening, and you look at the opposition, and they've got a couple of hundred fans in the corner, and it was like I said earlier. How did it come to this? But reality checks, and we're back up now. We've got really interesting foundations. We've got, dare I say, use that overused word, philosophy is different in terms of what's going on. Yeah. If you compare that to the Errol Bullitt era, it's a different way of playing. I think we're all happier with it, but more so because it's loaded with academy talent, and clearly the vibe is these guys are going to get a chance. And as Aled alluded to, maybe that's because Mr. Tan didn't put his hands in his pockets, but it's League One. Maybe he thought, let's try this, and
it worked, didn't it?
We've got there.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm not expecting him to go do a Wrexham or Birmingham City. I'd be really happy with some stability in the Championship next season.
Yeah.
And it's all about now, May and June, isn't it? And July.
Yeah. It's a massive summer. It's a really, really big summer. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it has been a reset button is a good word, Aled. But I've enjoyed get promotion, but I just had this thing in my head: we shouldn't be here. There's no way we should have got relegated last season with those players, but we did. Sometimes things are hard to get over. Get over yourself.
Yeah. But this is the happiest show we've probably done in years. So that's nice. Yeah. We haven't got that long, Al. What's your general thoughts on it? 'Cause it's hard to be objective about it. I think actually I do tend to agree with Al to a large extent. I think it has actually been a reawakening for us. What do you think, Al?
Yeah, I think at the end of last season we had the discussion on here, and we used that word reset. We said we all wanted reset, but I think as the close season went on and further and further and further, and we all wanted Ramsey, and we weren't signing players, and I just the reset seemed the furthest thing from in anyone's mind, wasn't it? It was more like, crikey, go down and let's try and consolidate our position as just a football club. It seemed at times. Now I know I'm still euphoric after the weekend, but I only see good things at the moment, and I'm only looking for the good things as well. Normally I said, yeah, but what about what about this? What about that? I'm seeing great things. Callum Robinson to me at the end of that, he just epitomised every single thing about a Cardiff City player. He wasn't sulking around the place saying, "Oh, you know, I didn't get game time even there." He was leading those players. It was unbelievable. Now, I get it. He's still got a year left in his contract, so he's in a very strong position now, isn't he? He can keep getting paid, and he's just gone up as part of a promotion squad. So, you know, if you're being cynical, you could say that, but I don't think so. I think, you know, him, Callum Chambers was there. You know, these are the players who've shown the youngsters how to do it. You forget how young these players are.
They're very young.
Bagan, we've said 24. Colwell 23, Colwell Junior. You know, these are the early stages of their career, and they've experienced some cracking. Let's not forget the cup nights as well. You know, Burnley away, Wrexham away, Chelsea at home.
Played great both times.
Well, they did fantastically well. They've really got an opportunity now. The one player I can't see us holding on to though is Dylan Lawler, because he's the best we've had since Ramsey in my eyes. And I think I just think he'll go. I can't imagine. He's the one player we mentioned earlier, perhaps the three out of contract wouldn't go to the Premier League. He's the one player in amongst us that you'd think, oh, that player can go. Yeah. He can go right to the top as far as I'm concerned.
So we've overrun, which is fine because, you know, we're happy, so that's all right. You know, we can go on a bit when we do it. Yeah. So a couple of things to say. Firstly, Gavin Gordon was going to come on the show tonight. Obviously couldn't make it, but Alan and I just chatted about it on the weekend. He's a great guy, and it would have been great to get him on because he played for City and Lincoln, and haven't they done well? So that would have been nice. But next week, pretty well sure that Andy Dibble's going to be on the show, so that'll be really good. We do have to play Port Vale and Northampton at home this week. There's arguably something on it. We could still win the league, but I don't think we bothered. You know, let's not even bother doing score predictions. Just you know, crack the champagne and keep celebrating for a while instead. Is that?
Yeah.
No one's arguing. I'll take that as yes. Right. Yes. Cheers, guys. Great show. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Maxwell Beats.
For your Caesar, Cardiff City, ride with me for your Caesar.